Okay, today I want to get into a topic that touches politics, culture, law, and everyday life, the LGBT movement. What it means to me, how it affects regular people, and why it has turned into a political force long after the major civil rights battle were already won. To start, I want to be clear I do not care what consenting adults do. You can live your life, have relationships, and make decisions with another adult. That's your business. And most people feel this exact same way, but we have crossed into a new territory. This used to be a civil rights movement. Now it's a legislative push that goes into schools, bathrooms, medical care for minors, quote unquote care, city budgets, speech regulations or suggestions, and public policy. This shift affects everyone, whether they want to be involved or not. And today, I'm going to break down what that means. I will talk about the history, the laws that already exist, why certain policies started appearing, and why the LGBT movement is now tied to cancel culture, including the personal attack I have experienced in Boonville, of all places, after a simple joke. And spoiler alert, it was extreme, and it showed me how quickly a group can try to tear down someone's entire livelihood and reputation. So, let's start at the beginning. To me, the LGBT started as a movement for adults who wanted the same civil rights every other adult had, which, small disclaimer here, citizens of America have had rights for a very long time. When I say civil rights, what I mean by that is simply marriage. And that fight ended in 2015 when the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage. At that point, the major legal barrier was resolved. And what's crazy is the Civil Rights Act already prohibits discrimination based on sex, race, and religion. And by the way, I believe that was in 1964. So I understand wanting the gay marriage thing, but even from the beginning, it was already a little bit suspicious because we were talking about gay marriage. Were we not also talking about this whole discrimination and like they called it civil rights specifically? So marriage should really have been the only thing in there. There shouldn't have been anything else mentioned. So, anyway, this isn't the same movement it once was, so to speak. It moved from that into social engineering and political influence. And now, for some reason, they involve children. One of the major pushes in recent years has been this bathroom legislation. For many people, this feels sudden, but if you look back, we separated men and women in public restrooms in the early 20th century. It came from practical concerns. At the time, women entering the workforce needed safe and private facilities. The separation was a protection, not discrimination. Now we have policies stating that anyone who identifies as a woman, even verbally and with no medical transition, can enter women's restrooms and go against the entire reason these spaces were created. The purpose was to give women a place free from vulnerability and risk. And I want to talk about that for 2 seconds. When I say vulnerable and risk, being a woman is inherently more vulnerable than being a man. Even if a man medically transitions, I'm a 5'10" female. Like I'm a larger female. A 5'10" male in comparison to me is always going to be stronger. Always. He'd have to be like anorexic to not be stronger than me. And even then, he may still be. And that's just biology. Okay? And this is just a little side tangent. I think a lot of these women that advocate for these policies of these transgender quote unquote women getting to go into women's bathrooms, I argue that, I wonder. I wonder. if they've ever actually dealt with a man overpowering them. Because let me tell you, not fun. And when you're in the bathroom, I hate to be graphic, but you are very vulnerable. We all know what happens in there, okay? Like, men and women don't even use the restroom the same way. So I don't know why we're even explaining all of this, but predators hide in bathrooms. Like, it's a secluded place with no cameras. It's vulnerability and risk to women. And that's one of my biggest gripes with the LGBT is I think that it's damaging to women's rights. Anyway, this is not about being mean. It's about logic and safety. Women have the right to boundaries. Boundaries don't just disappear because a movement demands it. And when I say boundaries, literally, guys, it's safety. Literally safety. Like, I don't understand why we're pushing all of these things onto women. That's what's going on. Anyway, another area being pushed is the treatment of transgender youth. The concern is not about adults, it's about minors. Some policies state that if a child identifies as trans, schools and agencies shouldn't question it, but identifying as trans can mean a lot of different things. Sometimes it is just verbal, other times it means taking hormones, taking puberty blockers, and cutting off healthy body parts. These are irreversible changes. They affect fertility, bone growth, and long term health. Mental as well, by the way. Nobody wants to talk about that. You know, we restrict minors from driving, boating, drinking, and signing contracts, yet somehow they are being allowed to make permanent medical decisions, and even adults struggle to understand. This isn't discrimination. The Civil Rights Act already protects against discrimination. If you remember, this is a medical and ethical issue involving minors. And parents deserve to be involved. Society deserves to ask questions. You cannot punish people for wanting oversight in the lives of children. Another major push has been around speech. Some groups want laws or policies that classify disagreement as harm, as one example. This shows up in attempts at hate speech rules, campus codes, corporate policies, and online enforcement. The United States does not ban speech simply because it offends somebody. If we lose free speech, we lose every other freedom. The Bill of Rights is not weakened when speech is restricted, it's dismissed. If you are not allowed to speak openly, you are not free. My favorite speaker and clinical psychologist, Jordan Peterson, has talked about this severity of regulating speech. Once speech is controlled, thought is controlled. And once thought is controlled, government has unlimited authority. We should not allow any movement to dictate what we are allowed to say or think, and I mean that. Another major issue that does not get talked about enough is how much taxpayer money goes into the LGBT related events, marketing, and parades. Many cities allocate money towards pride events, diversity initiatives, and advocacy programs, DEI. This is not a private group paying for its own events when the city is participating in it. So, for example, when you see the city of Columbia, St. Louis, Kansas City, I don't know if Springfield does it, when the city itself is participating in that, we got to start asking questions because then it's arguably public funds being used to elevate one social group over others. Governments should not be spending your money on activism. They should be using it for infrastructure, policing, roads, water systems, and civic services that benefit the entire community. Instead, many municipalities pander to the LGBT movement because it is politically convenient. And a lot of people are like, Heather, what does woke mean? Literally, woke means being politically correct. And if you still don't understand what that means, it means going with the wind and having no backbone and just doing what everybody else says you should do. And you know something? Being agreeable is something that a lot of people possess as a character trait, but it's just important to stand up where it matters. And honestly, if you can't do that, or if you can't do that well, you shouldn't be a leader. A lot of people say, well, Heather, this city person and that city person, they're a good person. You can be a good person and still not a good leader. But anyway, I digress. Now, I want to talk about what happened to me in Boonville. If you don't know what Boonville is, it's like 20 or 30 minutes west of Columbia. And it's a town of like 8,000 people. And I have lived here since 2019. And I think this story is important because it shows what happens when a movement believes it has the authority to socially punish anyone who they think steps out of line. This story is, it's still, I'm not going to lie and say it doesn't bother me to this day, just because this is where I live. And I would have never thought in a million years that this little rinky dinky town, which I love so much, and I moved here because Columbia was just not an option. The whole reason I'm in Boonville was because I thought that this place had way better of an opportunity to have my business here because I had an opportunity to put my business Top Dog in Columbia, but their ordinances were so restrictive and arguably oppressive that I chose Boonville. And so I just couldn't believe that this could even happen to me. And so in May, I made a simple video laughing at the No Kings protest. Nothing hateful, nothing cruel, just a comment about the protest being ridiculous. And the video went viral, and immediately about 30 entire people. I don't know, it wasn't like a huge amount per se. I would, if I had to guess, I'd say like 30 to 50 people in Boonville attacked me online. And I will say, I will give myself one critique on the video. I did use one swear word in there when I was calling them goofy, and nobody even cares about that except for me, or maybe like other Christians. But I could have used a different word that was a little more fitting to my beliefs, but I will say I do have a potty mouth, so I ain't gonna hide that either. Anyway, they made up lies about me. And I just want everybody to think about that. They made up lies. Since I own Top Dog USA, they wrote fake stories about my business. They wrote fake stories. They accused me of abusing animals. They wrote posts saying I do not take care of dogs. Meanwhile, I have spent years, because I started this in 2016, I've worked late nights, weekends, early mornings. I have been there at 1:30 in the morning multiple times, caring for the dogs. I've put literally blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of tears, into that business. I started it when I was 16. I've been through so much with this business. I could make a whole podcast on it. And I've even worked weeks where I can't even tell you how many hours I was there, especially starting out. But none of that mattered to them. They just wanted to destroy me because I was like, no kings is stupid. My first reaction, honestly, was defensive, and I stood firm and I said, yeah, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I'm a Republican. Yeah, I'm a conservative. No, I won't bow down to y'all. And then I considered taking legal action. There were two girls in particular that wrote long posts filled with lies and encouraged others to attack me. I believe their posts caused a lot of the damage that came my way. But I decided not to sue them in the end. I chose to forgive them, even though they did not care or understand what they did, because it was fully defamation and slander. Because remember, guys, cancel culture is facilitated by lies. That's what it is. There's another man in Boonville who runs an insurance company or something like that. I don't really know. But his husband is the owner or creator or whatever, the president. You can check on the Secretary of State's website if you really want to, but he owns the Cooper County LGBT Alliance thing. And it was his husband that, so the insurance guy. I always get confused. Anyway, the insurance one. He wrote a long, creepy post about me. And it was just weird. Like, it was just bizarre. And I didn't see it till later. Like, somebody sent it to me. Because during this time, I was like, I'm not reading all this garbage. But my friends kept trying to send it to me and stuff. And I was like, whatever. So I did see this post. And then he blocked me. I'm like, what a man. Many other people piled on, people I had never spoken to, people who made up outrageous stories. And when I say outrageous, they were outrageous. They tried to ruin my reputation and my livelihood over a single video where I laughed at protesters. The Cooper County LGBT Alliance, which is, I believe, a 501c3, now has me blocked, even though I've never spoken directly to them or attacked them. I have shared their posts and asked questions, but I've never come out and been like, this group is like this specific LGBT group is blah blah blah. Like I've never done that. I just ask questions, and they truly don't like questions. And I just want everybody to remember that they truly do not like or accept questions. Now, moving on, that's my story. Hope you enjoyed that, but most people do not care about somebody else's private life, but the LGBT movement now pushes a multitude of things, including bathroom legislation, youth medical policies, speech regulations or suggestions, change to school curriculums, public funding of activist events, and, of course, the cancel culture thing. None of these issues are about adult private life, they are political demands. Your identity is not a reason to rewrite public policy. Your lifestyle is not a reason to silence others. Your feelings are not a reason to take away constitutional rights. And my conclusion is this movement achieved its goal in 2015. Gay marriage became legal. Equal civil rights were secured. The Civil Rights Act already protects against discrimination. That part of the fight is over. But instead of settling, the movement grew into a legislative force that affects children, public spaces, city budgets, free speech, and cultural expectations. And when people speak up, they face cancel culture or personal attacks. And by the way, I've had so many people message me specifically about the LGBT. It's really sad that they are so destructive. And adults can live how they want, but your right to swing your fist ends at my nose, and vice versa. And this whole thing, the sex thing that y'all want and desire, is consenting adults. Of course, we have to preface that because of all this children stuff, but the sex thing with adults, keep it private and keep it among adults. Keep it out of the Capitol. Stop involving kids. Stop demanding new laws that force everyone else to participate. Stop spending taxpayer money on activism and stop trying to socially destroy people who disagree. Freedom belongs to all of us, not to one group, and we cannot call ourselves a free country if we can't even talk about it.